We had a lot of discussion about LeBron James and Bronny James as teammates early in the season, in the preseason, following the NBA draft. We had, Kings of Sports podcast guys, shout out to them. We talked about it with them in length early in the season. And then it's kind of been quiet because the Lakers sort of did what they should have done. They put Bronny in the development league, and he's bounced back and forth, getting experience here and there. Recently, there was this whole controversy, and Justin, maybe you can summarize it better than me, but I believe the Lakers were playing in New York, and Stephen A. Smith was a guest of, blanking on his name, Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm. He was there as his friend and guest. I guess he had an extra ticket and invited Stephen A. Smith to be courtside or near there with him. He's on the court at some point during the game, and LeBron approaches him and kind of just chastises Stephen A. Smith. According to Stephen A. Smith, I think it was just kind of simply like, keep my son's name out of your mouth. And you can look up the video clip. I mean, LeBron knew the cameras are on. Let's be honest here. He has that media savvy, so it's not anything that he was trying to hide. He was legitimately angry with Stephen A. Smith, from what it seems. Justin, we haven't even really casually outside of the podcast talked about this, so I wanted to get your thoughts on this whole situation. Was LeBron's anger warranted? And just what are your thoughts on media criticism towards Bronny James at this point?
Well, it's interesting that you said that you think that LeBron was mindful of the cameras there, because I'm wondering what's the gain from that? Because the fuel of the media and what their whole, I guess, not only reputation but their living is based on, it's Stephen A. Smith that needs that, not LeBron. LeBron plays in the NBA. LeBron's a legend. His whole source of income and popularity is based on his achievements on the basketball court, not thriving on media narratives. That's what Stephen A. Smith does. He was a journalist. He's a commentator. He just got like $100 million contract from ESPN. So I found it peculiar. And I think, when you're mad, you do things irrational. You do things illogical. So clearly he was angry. And, in the words of Stephen A. Smith, not to use a curse word on here, but they don't F with each other. They have beef. They don't like each other. And it goes back before this whole Bronny situation occurred. And I think it's escalated since then. So all that in saying, I'm not, I'm a fan, so I don't have any, jurisdiction to tell them what or what not to do. But I just thought it was weird for just LeBron. I understand where his anger is coming from. Look, I don't have kids, but, it's very easy, especially with Stephen A. Smith. He goes on his platforms. He said that he didn't say anything derogatory about Bronny. My bet is he probably did on one of these shows, and LeBron probably heard it. And I think, in my mind, he was trying to protect his son. However, you got to take a look in the mirror if you're a LeBron. You orchestrated his entire career.
Right, exactly.
And you ruined, and I was talking about this, and I brought this up with the Kings of Sport, and I was going on a walk with my girlfriend talking about this, and she was right. Every single achievement that Bronny has, really, honestly, until he becomes MVP or wins the title or something, if that does happen, it's going to be because of his father. And just him standing up on his own, LeBron took that away from him. When LeBron was in high school, he earned that. His parents didn't give him that media attention. The parents didn't put him on the cover of Sports Illustrated. LeBron did that. LeBron was the number one drafted pick in the NBA. LeBron had the great debut in his first game. LeBron, put Cleveland on his back. No one else did. LeBron earned that. And with his son, he has been coddled and protected. Let's just keep it real. And if his last name was Bronny, I don't know, Richardson, would he be in the NBA? Probably not. Probably playing overseas or, in the G League somewhere. But I think when you do that, he's going to get I tell you, you're right. To me, I think in my mind, you're harming the really accolades that Bronny could earn on his own by doing that. I mean, it's a fact that basically he threatened teams in terms of if you draft my son, or I'm not going to come play for you. I mean, what do you expect? So I understand from the Stephen A. Smith aspect. Do I, quote unquote, was I enamored for what he did? I mean, it gave us something to talk about. I mean, but I think it was kind of poor judgment. But I get the anger because he just hates the guy. So I mean, it kind of makes sense from that aspect. But overall, the criticism of your son, yeah, people are going to criticize your son. People are going to criticize you. I mean, you set that up, and unfortunately, you robbed Bronny of earning those accolades himself. And instead, you laid this perfect path out for him, which he already had a great path. He probably had the best trainers, best food, best whatever. And then you also just laid this path where he just didn't earn it on his own. And it's just, it's unfortunate, especially in this era where people are really against this nepotism. I mean, that's kind of the grade 8 example of that. So.
No, a lot of great points there. I think we're pretty much aligned with how we view this. And you're right. I mean, to your point, we won't really, in our just objectively, we won't really know if Bronny is a legitimate NBA player until LeBron James retires because of how this all has been set up. And that's just a fact. I mean, we know LeBron arguably has the most power in the league from like a business perspective side, from face of the league side, even to this day. The man has a lot of power. The man can and has made NBA franchises do certain things, including arguably the most powerful NBA franchise in the history of the league, the Lakers. So LeBron has a ton of power, and his son has been able to benefit off of that. And again, I'll say the same thing I said in the beginning of the season. I hope Bronny James is a success story. I don't want to see him out of the league when LeBron retires or like a season or two after. I would like him to be a success story just for himself as an individual, as a man. I want him to succeed in this dream that he has of being in the NBA. But we're going to have to wait and see how legitimate that is. And hopefully he's able to deliver. Let me ask you one more thing before we move on, because honestly, the criticism that I have seen directed towards Bronny James, I feel, and I'm talking about mainstream shows, the stuff that gets quite a few clicks. I'm not talking about trolls in comment sections or things like that, of which I'm sure, as there is with just about any topic, I'm sure there are some horrible things that are said. But in terms of media analysis and criticism of Bronny James, I honestly have not heard anything that, even from Stephen A. Smith or otherwise, I haven't heard anything that seems all that like morally objectionable or offensive. It seems like pretty straight across the board. Everyone kind of sees what's going on here and what you and I have just outlined, that is Bronny actually a legitimate NBA player? And that seems like a very fair question to ask. Have you seen anything that, trips any other radars or alarms for you in terms of the content around Bronny James?
I don't think so. I think a lot of the criticism is valid, like you were saying, eliminating just the fools on social media. And I think him being in the G League, he has performed there in some spurts. And I think in this league, as we've seen, I mean, you don't have to be the leading scorer and everything to have a prominent NBA career. I mean, he could specialize in one thing and make tons of money and win tons of championships. I mean, I don't think that's really changed over the years. I think the problem is that, man, I mean, you remember with Michael Jordan, his kids. I mean, I think one or two of them played college ball, and just the national media attention of just like, that is an astronomical amount of pressure. I mean, it's already pressure enough with players like, Steph Curry with his father. But when you're dealing with LeBron, who some people say We could have this debate later, but arguably he's the greatest player who ever lived. I mean, he's in that discussion.
Sure.
Whether people believe it or not. I mean, that is just. I mean, basically, I would say if he's in public holding a basketball, somebody's going to come up to him and have some kind of comment about his father. I mean, I don't know. That has to have some kind of a toll on you, or so, it has to have some kind of effect, positively or negatively. I do not know. But I think as he's gotten older, that pressure grows and grows and grows. And he's been in the media spotlight similar to his father, in this age of social media, probably since middle school. And already him going to USC and what's going to happen there, and him having just to deal with that medical diagnosis, already fairly difficult. And now you just, rob him of earning his spot in the NBA. Yeah, you're just putting more and more hurdles on him to be an elite player. I think he will get more chances than your other players in the G League, so he's going to, I think, get his due. I don't think there's going to be a bias from a owner or a coach's standpoint. I think he'll get his, like you're saying, when LeBron retires. I don't see Bronny out of the league immediately because LeBron is gone. I think he gets his shots. But in terms of the criticism, like you were saying, I think it's, a lot of the analysis is spot on in terms of how he's performed. I think in some way he's kind of exceeded expectations. And that goes to his character. And even with Stephen A. Smith, I don't think he was totally bashing him at all. I think he was, mostly bashing LeBron. So,
yeah, and that's kind of why I wanted to make some of these points, because Stephen A. Smith also tends to get one thing he and LeBron have actually in common. They both tend to get a lot of criticism for different reasons, fairly or unfairly so. And in this situation, I honestly think LeBron might have overreacted a little bit. Now,
yeah,
I don't know, on a personal level, if there's other stuff that we don't know about. Obviously, I'm not privy to that. But in terms of things that I've seen, clips of Stephen A. talking about Bronny or things like that, I haven't sensed like disrespect towards Bronny or LeBron James. It's just seemingly pretty objective, just criticism that public figures receive. Doesn't seem all that personal from his side coming to LeBron, but maybe there's other stuff we don't know.
Yeah, it seems like they just had a long-staying beef. And what I didn't like about Stephen A. is at first addressing the situation, pretty apologetic, pretty respectful towards LeBron, respectful towards Bronny about the situation. He didn't go on a huge rant. But then he wanted to play tough guy on Gilbert Arenas' podcast. Shout out to Josiah Johnson, the host of that podcast, guest of the show a few times. And he's just on there saying oh, that's weak. Just trying to be like, oh, I'm the tough guy, LeBron. He comes over. It's like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you just said something different on your platform. Like, you can't just say, like, your words got misconstrued. Like, that was your YouTube channel, man. Like, I don't know. I didn't like that's how he changed his tune. I mean, I thought that was kind of more weak than the actual incident himself. Him wanting to play tough guy. I think kind of after the initial firestorm and hearing what people had to say, all of a sudden, I guess he got more into his feelings when he was on with Gilbert Arenas and those guys. But
yeah, maybe he was just disarmed a little bit on that podcast. Maybe possibly. He had his guard down or something and wasn't putting on a professional face.
True.
I don't know, but no, you make a good point there. Any other thoughts before we move on?
I don't. I think it's from a media perspective, it really just grew Stephen A's brand. And I don't know, it kind of plays into him just growing as a cultural figure in America, whether you like or hate the guy. It only grows from there. I mean, people are talking about him running for president. So I think it just, in this day and age, our bets are kind of off. So I don't know. I just think this is kind of a lesson for future players, because it seems like other players that are friends with LeBron, they don't want to talk to Stephen A. at all. I think it's a good lesson. Like, be smart about what you want in terms of confronting a media member, because it might have the opposite effect in terms of what you intended it for. Because in this case, it made Stephen A. Smith a lot more popular, and I think it made LeBron look bad, even though if you can say LeBron might be in the right. I think Stephen A. ultimately, from a media perspective, probably won out on this one. So
Agreed. And, I'll say, maybe there's like a 20% chance, maybe even higher, that, all of this is just a scripted soap opera to get
wow,
headlines for both gentlemen. But,
I don't think so. I
maybe not.
I get responding to the criticism of, like, I mean, Stephen A. Smith's basically, saying you're a bad dad. And I get that. No father wants to hear that, especially when you've gone out of your way to be a good dad, right? I I don't think anybody realistically thinks LeBron's a bad parent. Um, did he put Bronny in a situation where, he was doomed to failure? I don't know. I think for a late second round pick, I don't think Bronny's been bad. I mean,
agreed.
most of them
Agreed.
don't make the league. He's done pretty well in the G League here and there. He's shown some promise lately. I I think he needs time. I think he could potentially be a pretty good rotation player in the NBA. Um, not maybe a first guy off the bench, but like a guy who can come in and play defense and that kind of stuff, like an Aaron Holiday kind of guy. Um, I, I, but I, I mean, if Bronny flames out in the NBA, it's not like he's going to be living on Skid Row. His dad's a billionaire,
Yeah, yeah.
who believes in passing on generational wealth, um, and building generational wealth. He's going to be fine. So I don't think. No, pardon me. So when I look at, first of all, let me just say this: Stephen A. Smith is a clown. He's a clown. He's saying things to get. He's always said things to rile people up, to create controversy, because he's a clown and he thinks that that's what gets people to pay attention to him. Um, LeBron, I honestly think should have just let it go. But we all know that LeBron, while not as thin-skinned as say like KD, LeBron is a little thin-skinned and can, you know, poke back at people who poke at him. He takes it personally. I get it, and that's part of what drives him and has made him such a great player. I mean,
Agreed.
arguably he's the goat. Um, and so I I don't know. I think I think the initial wrong is Stephen A. Smith, um, but I think Braun may have overreacted a little bit, and made
Yeah.
it bigger than it needed to be.
I think he played into Stephen A's hands. I
Yeah.
don't understand why you're confronting him in a public setting. I mean, even I do agree with Stephen A on this. Like the footage, and I don't think this is a coincidence. After they had that confrontation, like LeBron is straight looking at a camera afterwards. Like I don't know, maybe it's people are making a big deal out of it as it is, but it just seems to me, why are you doing this in public? And then why are you going to Pat McAfee's show to even address this? It's just you're feeding this monster of Stephen A. Smith. You're giving him what he wants. I mean, you're making him like the hottest story in America. I mean, and especially that's tough to do with all the political climate now. And yet, you
Right.
boosted him in terms of being, arguably the hottest topic on social media and just in America in general. And LeBron, I mean, if you really hate this guy, why you facilitated that and you continue to do that with your appearance on Pat McAfee's show. Even though I do think with Stephen A. Smith, I do think he has some good points in terms of, I mentioned this before, just with Bronny's legacy, like that is going to be overshadowed because LeBron orchestrated him being in the league without him earning it. And that's always going to be a black mark unless Bronny just becomes this legendary all-star. But I think that's always going to fall him unfairly to him, and that was LeBron's fault. At the same time, I just think you're right with Stephen A. Smith. I mean, that's what this guy does, right? I mean, I followed his career from Fox Sports the first time, not when he got fired from ESPN and ended up there the second time, but the first time, his like original radio show that was
Oh,
only 30 minutes, that I was listening to. Like, I always thought, this guy's going to have a career just because he has a loud mouth. And at the time, I was really intrigued by him, just in terms of he had a different flavor on the game compared to what I was listening to, and I was in high school when I first heard him. But I just think now it's kind of devolved into him. Just a lot of hot takes. I don't think he's as bad as Skip Bayless, but I think in some cases he kind of approaches that. I just personally, to me, just because I'm a combat sports fan, his takes on combat sports are insane. You think he's bad? If you think he's terrible in basketball, don't let him talk about it. Two people throwing hands, he's worse. So,
Oh wow.
yeah, he is much worse. If you question his basketball knowledge, but.
I mean, didn't he have a thing with where he couldn't even name any Detroit Pistons players, and then another thing where he said congratulations to Chauncey Billups for coaching them so well?
Right.
I mean, it's like I get making a mistake. I mean, you and I might make a mistake, but we're also not paid to watch,
Exactly.
80 games for each team. We're not, for him to be in that position as ESPN's head basketball guy, their big guy, and to not know who's coaching the Pistons, an up and coming team, a team I'm actually excited about, or who any of the players are. It's insane. One thing you brought up, it kind of made me think something, Justin, was this LeBron looking in the camera. I mean, let's be clear here. LeBron is also likes the spotlight, so this also is an opportunity for him to become a big story and take away some spotlight from some younger players that might be usurping his dominance as the NBA story. So
That's interesting because is that the case that we just mentioned though with the NBA kind of ecosystem and the spear is still in his pocket? I mean, you take a look at the international, even when Wemby was playing. I mean, Wemby was, correct me if I'm wrong, Wemby was popular, but it wasn't like he was the talk of the league in terms of when he was active. And I just feel with a lot of you always hear these things about Tatum and Brown, like they're boring or they just whatever strikes against them. It just seems like there's just all these weird red marks against kind of the new stars of the league, and it's just usually LeBron and Steph. LeBron and Steph, it's always about them. So, I mean, and I don't think I disagree with you either. I don't know why he's paranoid about that because he has the whole NBA in his pocket in terms of getting the media spotlight. They're firmly on his side. So,
but that's how he does it.
yeah,
I mean, doing stuff like this stunt with Stephen A. Smith is how he keeps his name out there.
fair. And
If
it's a
he doesn't
shame.
do
Yeah,
that, nobody talks about him. Maybe they talk about Steph that night, or they talk about Luca. But
yeah.
he has everybody talking about him just where he wants everyone.
Well, I don't know if I totally agree with that because look how old he is and look how much he's performing. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, just in terms of what he's done and his age and everything is pretty miraculous. It's a shame that's being overshadowed by just this antics with Stephen A. Smith. It's unfortunate for sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just think sometimes you do anything you can to get your news. No, there's no such thing as bad press, right?
Fair.
Unless you're Russell Brand.
Yeah,
So
jeez.